and welcome to On the Table. We are broadcasting on RTM Click and MyTV's Berita RTM channel 123, which is also live streaming on YouTube. I'm your host, Otto Othman. Selamat Hari Raya. How was your way we celebrate Hari Raya? Well, evolved over the time, and especially when in Malaysia, where diverse cultures blend seamlessly. Yes, and what makes Raya delicacies so special, whether it's that one dish that takes you back to childhood or the beloved kueh and snacks that spark joy in every bite. Well, today, on the table, we discuss a taste of Raya, honoring heritage, savoring flavors with Naj Arifin, heritage and gastronomy historian. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Otto.
Now, to kick things off, as a historian, how do you perceive the way we celebrate Raya in today's modern context, and how does it actually differ from past celebrations, particularly within Malaysia's unique cultural setting, given that Eid is also celebrated by Muslims worldwide?
Well, considering that I am 60 years old, almost 60 years old, and I've been through many Raya seasons, the difference between the olden days and now is these days, well, Raya is a little bit more commercialized than in the olden days, and that goes for all celebrations, not just Raya. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's just that certainly there's more commercially driven aspects to it. And whereas in the olden days, it was really a bit more, you could say, more domestic, more, shall I say, authentic, in the sense that people celebrated because they celebrated, and it did not have much of a commercial slant to it. But then again, most of the Raya traditions are still there and still celebrated, and those are still authentic, so that's fine. And there are some differences which I think as we go along, I will point them out because they are in separate categories.
Oh, wow. Now, let's focus on Raya's gastronomic experience. So what's your personal favorite and Raya dish, and what makes it stand out for you, especially during this festive season?
Well, for me, my most cherished Raya fare is actually the one that I am involved in making, and that's usually the making of ketupat.
Okay.
So from young, my mother taught me how to make the ketupat, me and my sisters. So we would get together and anyam ketupat. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that is ingrained in the culture of at least my family, and I'm sure many other families as well. So when we go back to my parents' house for Raya, we would already be, the day before, we'd already be doing the weaving of the ketupat. And you can eat that with anything. So whatever you eat it with is quite personal. For example, my personal favorite is my mother's sayur tumis. Very simple sayur tumis, but the way she cooks it is a bit different from the everyday cooking. And but of course, other people would be rendang, and then rendang you have whether it's rendang ayam, rendang daging, and of course the rendang itik, even with that. So I think I would suggest that the most special Raya fare, Raya food for each individual is something that is tied to their memory, and if they do it on their own, like the ketupat that I do.
Well, I tried doing the ketupat when I was younger, but I totally failed. I did try. Yeah.
I can teach you that.
All that. And plus, you've been in this industry since 1990s, right?
Yes.
And that means you know the history between the ketupat, how it was started off. It actually started off as a form of travel for a few people coming to Malaysia and all that, right?
Okay. Now, the history of the ketupat is actually not just Malaysia, and it's fairly common throughout the geographic Malay world.
Yeah.
And it's something that is quite natural for a place where the ecosystem has kelapa trees, coconut trees, where you have these fronds which have long janur. So from there, naturally, people will gravitate towards creating something that will be useful for them in their food. And like you said, one of, not the, but one of the uses is that you can bring that as part of your traveling. So that's very, very useful. But even then, even if you don't travel, you can still enjoy the ketupat at home. And so there are many kinds of ketupat, actually, the forms, the weaving of it. There's ketupat bawang, ketupat Medan, ketupat.
Wow.
There's quite a few ways of weaving it. So in the olden days, you could say that, okay, one region, the specialty is this form of ketupat, another region, but today it's all mixed up. And that's another factor. In the olden days, the particular sub-traditions were quite specific to certain regions.
Yeah.
But today, with the high mobility that we all have, not just within Malaysia, but even in Southeast Asia, in the ASEAN region. So there's a lot of interconnected influence.
That's also what I love about it, is we're interconnected in a certain way, particularly when it comes to food. Even ketupat, like just what you said, Mr. Naj, that we have all different kinds of ketupats, but eventually it all comes to the same thing.
Yes.
Down to the rice and also to the form of the leaves, right?
Yes.
And it's not only a main dish as well here in Malaysia, all right? In addition to the main dishes, Raya is known for its delightful array of snacks, kuih, and also biscuits. So what do you think are some of the kuih Raya that are uniquely Malaysian? And are there any interesting stories or cultural significance behind them?
Okay, now, when we speak of kuih, again, I would like to point out that before colonialism, we were all one region. We were interconnected. There was no Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei, these modern countries. We were all one people. We traveled and intermarried with each other. And so all of these foods and recipes were also intermixed. And whatever kuih we have now, for some, of course, we consider them very Malaysian, but of course, they are found in many other places or today countries in the region as well. And we should remember that, because sometimes people forget and they think that, oh, this particular dish is only for this country and that is only for that country,
right? Yes.
Which I think is both historically inaccurate and in the modern sense unfair, because this is a shared culture, a shared heritage.
I love that.
So having said that, I'm also concerned that some of the kuih, okay, we do have so many, we have hundreds of kuih actually, but when you go to the Pasar Ramadan, when you go to the shops,
those are the staple ones.
Those are the staple ones, and they are dwindling. The numbers are dwindling every year because people, and this is where the commercialism comes in. You see, you'll see the point here. The people who cook them and sell them want to do the simplest one, the easiest ones. And so the ones that are a bit more complicated, the ones that are a bit more, how do I say it?
Intricate?
Intricate, yes, that's a very good word. Intricate, sophisticated, and they have different tastes, are beginning to be sidelined because they are not as commercial. And when you make something with a lot of effort and then you can't sell it because people don't understand that it's something special. So that's where the commercialism is dangerous, because people just want to do the quickest, the simplest, and you lose some of the more rare, the more historic kuih. For example, I give one example, kuih serak jagung. Young people, there you are. Young people don't know it because it's quite specific to Perak, by the way, where I'm from. That's why I know it. And it uses jagung, which is very rare when you consider for kuih muih. And it's dying out because it's not that easy to make, but it's very tasty. It's wonderful. You can really taste the jagung, and it's not meant to be sweet, for example. Yeah. So that's the other danger that I'm coming into for Raya, and not just Raya. I mean, in general, but in Raya, you can sort of feel this. In the olden days, kuih muih were not meant to be just sweet. They were meant to be savory. So if a particular kuih had pandan, you taste the pandan savor savouriness in it.
Yes.
If it's the jagung, you taste the jagung. If it's the gula melaka, you taste the gula melaka. Not the focus. The focus is not on the sweetness.
Yeah.
But unfortunately today, I think partly because we are competing with donuts, we are competing with cupcakes, we're competing with all these Western sweet fare. So the kuih have become sweetened, which in the olden days was not the case. So it's a mistake that people say, oh, kuih Melayu ni manis-manis, and there's a negative connotation to that. But actually, it was not like that. So that's one of those changes that have been happening. And we need to go back to our authentic cooking where it's meant to be savoury, not just sweet.
I see. Wow, that's a lot of information that I'm supposed to digest, and everybody else, the viewers as well. There's how many hundreds of different types of kuihs here in Malaysia alone?
We did a study, Project Kuih, where we found about 200.
Wow.
And that's only the west coast of the peninsula, of the Malay Peninsula, the west coast. We haven't gone to Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang. We haven't gone to Sabah, Sarawak yet, which will be in a future endeavor. So there are already 200 kuih there, and many are, they're not extinct yet. And that's what we want to do. We want to record them so that anyone who wants to revive them will have can come to us and we can help them to revive it.
Now, when it comes to food, it often plays a central role in any Malaysian celebration, acting as both a conversation starter and even a social icebreaker. From your perspective, how do Raya delicacies actually differ from those found in parts of the Malay archipelago, and what makes them distinct?
Okay, again, we need to understand that the Malay archipelago, the Malay world, used to be one large entity with many variations within it. It was not separated by borders like we have now. And so when you mention things like we already mentioned ketupat, and then lemang, for example, or rendang, and all these staple dishes that are associated with Raya. And in the olden days, they were very much associated with Raya because in the olden days, people were not as rich as we are now. Actually, we are in an age where we are actually wealthier than our ancestors and our forefathers were. For example, our forefathers didn't eat meat like really every day, actually. We can have meat, all kinds of meat every day today. And even the average person, you don't have to be rich to enjoy that. In the olden days, meat was considered something quite special, and it's not necessarily because they were poor. No, they were not poor, but there was no refrigeration, for example, in the olden days. So you need to, when you slaughter a cow or a kerbau, you need to make sure that it can be properly finished and consumed by everyone in the kampung. And so that's why during Raya, they would slaughter a few cows or kerbau, and then everybody would make rendang and enjoy that. Whereas during normal days, there wouldn't be that many. And so all these dishes have become not just limited to Raya now, but the special thing about Raya is that, about these dishes in Raya, is that you enjoy them together. You don't just go to the normal restaurant and you take the rendang, you take whatever it is. But I think what we need to remember is that Raya is the gist of Raya is the togetherness, and that's where the rumah terbuka, the open house tradition came about.
I would say there's so much things that we can discuss, and it's such an eye-opener that we realize that connectivity sometimes is misled sometimes as well. Seeing that we have lots of things that we can actually share together, and we did for many years. And aside from that, of course, we're going to discuss further on this, but we're going to take a very short break to discuss more on this wonderful topic. So stick around.
In 2025, Malaysia proudly leads the ASEAN community into a new era of unity, growth, and opportunity. Together with 10 Southeast Asian nations, Malaysia is driving progress in trade, innovation, sustainability, and tourism. Explore the best of Malaysia, from its stunning landscapes to its rich cultural heritage. Be part of global events, business summits and exciting festivals throughout the year. Join us in 2025. Discover new connections, celebrate unity, and experience the future of Southeast Asia. ASEAN Malaysia 2025. Together, we rise.
Welcome back to the show. We're speaking to Naj Arifin, heritage and gastronomy historian, on the topic A Taste of Raya, honoring heritage, savouring flavors. Now, in terms of complete gastronomic experience, how do you see Hari Raya as a way of fostering deeper connections, Mr. Naj? And also, when it comes to this, how do we actually, when it comes to communal food preparation traditions like rawang and also kenduri, it's rare to experience this in isolation as well. What are the thoughts on the importance of these practices?
In the olden days, these collective cooking practices were, of course, part and parcel of kampung life. And some of the modern changes include that, as we said earlier in the show, people are much more mobile now, and the children, for example, of a family, they go out and work. Some of them maybe in nearby cities. If they're from the kampung, somewhere in any of the states, they go to Kuala Lumpur, any of the big cities. And now, of course, there are those who even go working overseas. And so we have started to lose some of that collectiveness where you would cook together for kenduri and things like that. But all is not lost as long as the feeling and the sentiment is there. At some point it will come back and people will come back and do things together. But for the moment, yes, we have lost the practicality of some of those aspects of togetherness in celebrating, and that celebration includes the preparation, the cooking, dodol. When I was younger, we did have the kampung get together, and everyone overnight would have all these huge kuali, and we'd all take turns, kacau dodol,
Yes.
that kind of thing, which, sad to say, they still exist now. I have seen them in Malacca, for example, when I went for a visit, but it's not as common as before. And again, it's already become a bit commercialized. The dodol makers, they now use machines. They don't use human effort anymore. But still, when you find any that still do that, then those need to be cherished.
Yeah. Mr. Naj, when it comes to this, I'm kind of also interested to know that you've learned many different kind of languages as well. And say 4 different. You speak Spanish, you speak French, Italian, not to mention Malay and English. And how do they actually realize that how our gastronomy is? Do they find it interesting? Do they find it like shocking to see how our culture is?
Yes, I deal a lot with European tourists or visitors, and yes, they do find our culture very, very diverse, very intricate, actually. For example, when you compare making the kuih or making the rendang dish or making any of the lauk pauk, the preparation is actually a bit more intricate. It takes more time than the average Western dishes or Western cakes, which are, this is not a subjective thing that it's just pointing out that it takes more time to make the, not just Malay, but also Asian cooking takes more time. But you are rewarded with so much more diversity that enters your tongue, that enters your mouth and is tasted by the tongue.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different kinds of additional ingredients which we have, being part of a tropical ecosystem, tropical landscape. And so those are the things that we should remember, because there's also the danger that in some of our Raya fare, we have mixed Western cakes, Western infusions. That's fine, but we should not forget that there's a reason why our cuisine takes more time to do, is more difficult to make, because it does have more intricate and more sophisticated tastes that, as we were saying, when the Europeans taste it, they say, wow, this is You know, we don't have, ours are just variations of cakes, but the kuih muih that we have here are really diverse. They're not from one particular type. That's why we say kuih muih, not just kuih. There's a difference.
Now, Mr. Naj, last December, Malaysia's breakfast culture was officially recognized by UNESCO as part of the Intangible Cultural Heritage List, highlighting its significance as a social and also cultural tradition. Now, what are the thoughts on this recognition, especially in terms of preserving our food heritage while maintaining our identity as well amidst modernization and cultural differences?
Okay, that's wonderful that we were recognized and included, and I'm happy to say I was a small contributor to that. And I'll repeat what I contributed in the sense of the background to that. Okay, we're not looking at just the dishes; we are looking at the whole culture behind it, and that culture is a very shared culture. We have in our breakfast. We, as Malaysians, we don't think about it, but we can have roti canai, we can have nasi lemak, we can have all kinds of things, and they are from the different cultures that have come together and contributed to what we are today. And so that's something that is very harmonious, and it's part of what UNESCO wants. They want to see things which help to show the mix of humanity and the harmony that we can be as human beings. So behind just the dishes, what they are, how you eat it, it's also how they came together. So that's a very important part of it. And it's the same thing with Raya. In Raya, we have the open house, for example, rumah terbuka. And that has become something that is not just limited to Hari Raya, but also to Chinese New Year, to Deepavali, and so on, where people of our mixed cultures, they also have adopted the rumah terbuka concept. And I would like to remind us Malaysians that when we do a rumah terbuka, we need to be very, very honest about it. When we say we do a rumah terbuka, we must accept anyone who comes. If you do a rumah terbuka and you just invite a group of people and say that's a rumah terbuka, that's not a rumah terbuka.
But it defeats the whole purpose, isn't it?
Yes, it defeats the whole purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on to another fascinating cultural aspect of Hari Raya fashion, particularly traditional attire. Now, classic outfits like the baju Melayu and also baju kurung have evolved over time with modern designs and motifs. Yes. Now, how do you view this evolution of Raya fashion in relation to our identity as Malaysians?
There's always the original part, the authentic part, the very traditional part, and then there's the evolution of it. Whether it's the evolution of the baju kurung or the baju Melayu for the men and so on, and then there's the fusion. So there are several aspects of it, and then there's the new additions such as the kurta raya, for example. And now, of course, there are people who argue that, oh, we shouldn't mess up the traditional one, keep it traditional and all that. Of course, there's an argument for that, but we should also remember that culture, from the very beginning, it does evolve.
Yes.
I can bet you that 1,000 years ago, what we would consider the baju Melayu would be different from what we see as baju Melayu today, because it has evolved.
So culture does evolve.
Culture evolves sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly.
But tradition, does it evolve though? Tradition?
Yes, it does.
It does as well.
It does evolve. It's just, as I said, whether it evolves rapidly or it evolves slowly. And it's also geographic. There are places where the traditions remain quite constant. There are places where the traditions could change almost overnight.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, it seems that we have very little time, pressing time. Moving on to the next question is, one of the most cherished traditions of Hari Raya is the balik kampung, so the journey home to one's ancestral village to reunite with families. Now, what does this tradition signify? Is it a statement, or does it fulfill a frailty and a way of honoring one's roots, or is it something else?
It is all those. And it's not just Raya, Chinese New Year, especially, for example, you see in China during Chinese New Year, it's one of the most massive movements of humanity. So likewise here in Malaysia, we also have that balik kampung tradition. And it's something that actually reinforces the values that we have, the values of family togetherness. And we don't mind going through terrible traffic jams as long as we can be with our family. So that is a statement in itself.
Now let's talk about Duit Raya. The tradition of giving green packets filled with money from our elders to children. What does this tradition symbolize actually? And interestingly, it's quite similar to Ang Pao.
Yes.
Yeah, given during the Chinese New Year. Now, is this a practice observed worldwide during Eid, or is it something uniquely Malaysian?
Okay, it's not uniquely Malaysian actually. I spent Raya last year in Cairo, Egypt, and they do have that tradition as well. But it is a little bit more limited in the Egyptian context that I saw with my own eyes. For example, you only give it to the children of your closest relatives, not to anyone who comes. So that's the difference. Here, everyone who comes to your house for open house, for example, then you give Duit Raya. Now, one key difference is that when I was younger, we did not have the sampul Raya, the Ang Pao type of where you put the money in packets.
Yes.
Yeah? We did not have that. You actually just gave the money directly into the hands of the children. So you could immediately see what was given. Yeah. Now, I think we should go back to that for two reasons. One is you don't have to waste paper.
Okay.
Most of these Raya packets, sampul Raya, you only use it at, once, maybe you recycle a few times, but then after that, it's thrown away. And so it's a bit of a waste there. And the other thing is, I think in the olden days, when you actually put the money into the hands of the children, it's more honest. It's more sincere. You actually put how much you can afford.
Yes.
Yeah. And so children are also taught, they are taught to honor whatever is given, no matter if it's just 1 cent. In the olden days, I mean, in 1950s, 1 cent was a lot. Actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Children should be taught that they should honor and be gracious and be grateful for whatever amount is given. Whereas in the packets, it's already hidden. Yeah,
it's a mystery.
It's a mystery. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I think if the original tradition had that in mind about the sincerity, we should go back to that.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for our little session today on the table this evening. We've been speaking to Naj Arifin, heritage and gastronomy historian. A repeat of this episode's broadcast can be viewed again at the same time tomorrow and subsequent days on both RTM Click and MyTV's Berita RTM channel, as well as Berita RTM YouTube channel. Till next Thursday, we'll discuss another topic of interest. I'm Otto Othman. Thanks for watching and Selamat Hari Raya.